In 1995, an engaged couple hiked into Yosemite and never came out. Their trail markers ended at a strange carved tree. No signs of struggle, no calls for help, just silence. But in 2024, a wildfire scorched the same stretch of forest and revealed something hidden beneath the earth: a sunken bunker, a single sleeping bag, and a trail cam finally digitized, showing the couple wasn't alone. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe for more cinematic true crime mysteries, shocking cold case discoveries, and survival stories that stretch the limits of the human mind. July 14th, 2024, location: Sierra National Forest, Mariposa County, California. The air still smelled scorched. Ash clung to the underbrush like frost as the fire crews moved methodically through the smoldering remains of what had once been dense pine forest. The inferno, dubbed the Signal Fire, had torn through nearly 7,000 acres over the past week, devouring old growth, consuming abandoned campsites, and leaving the high ridges skeletal and raw. But the blaze had also revealed something. Hotshot crew leader Miles Ortiz squatted near the edge of a steep embankment, staring down into a collapsed section of earth, a warped metal hatch peeking through soot-covered dirt. Its edges were rusted and blackened. The fire had likely weakened the support beams below, causing the ground to sink just enough to expose it. At first, he thought it was an old utility cover. Then he saw the carved tree. 10 feet upslope stood a charred Jeffrey pine, its bark scorched but still intact in one place. Carved crudely into the surface, though now blackened by fire, were the Roman numerals 9. Tree 9. He didn't know the story, but the look on the older fireman's face behind him did. "Jesus," the man muttered, removing his helmet. "They were right. It's real." Miles turned. "What?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his phone and snapped a photo of the hatch, then of the tree. Then he said something that made Miles's stomach drop. "In '95, 2 hikers went missing near here. Couple from San Francisco. Only clue was a trail log that ended at tree 9. No one ever found them." Miles looked back down at the metal door. Now partially split from heat, bent like a crowbar had been jammed inside it from within. Someone had tried to escape. Sheriff Lena Bauer stood over the bunker an hour later, hands on her hips, mouth dry. She'd been a rookie when the Holly and Jacob Givens case went cold. Now she was standing on the edge of what might be the key to everything. A camera crew was documenting wildfire damage nearby. They'd asked to film the excavation. She said no. She wanted time, quiet, precision, because what lay beneath the burned soil wasn't just scorched metal and empty forest. It was history coming back to life, a sealed past, a mistake. And when her deputy handed her an old trail camera, half melted but still partially intact, its memory card somehow untouched, Sheriff Bauer felt the first chill of something she hadn't felt in 29 years. Dread. "Get this digitized," she said, "and find the names. Every single one who logged that trail in July 1995. No one noticed the bones at first. The bunker was nearly empty. No furniture, no bedding. Just a sleeping bag, half buried in soot, and a stack of journals, scorched around the edges. But in the corner, near the rotted back wall, a human radius protruded from the floor like a snapped branch, and beneath it, fabric, a strip of blue nylon. Sheriff Bauer dropped to her knees. It was part of a raincoat, the same kind Jacob Givens had worn the day he vanished. July 15th, 1995. Location: Yosemite National Park, California. They signed the register at 10:47 a.m. under a cloudless sky, their names tucked neatly between entries from 2 families and a group of college kids who'd passed through the day before. Holly Mason Givens, 28, wrote in looping cursive. She drew a small sun next to their names and added, "Looping north past Ridge Hollow. Returning Monday. Just the 2 of us." Jacob Givens stood behind her with his pack already cinched, a pair of laminated trail maps in hand. He was the type who double-checked compass bearings and measured water by the ounce. An engineer's mind. Careful, precise. The ranger who watched them from the visitor center window wouldn't remember them later. To her, they were just another couple on a weekend escape. Healthy, smiling, too tan to be local. But Holly and Jacob were already carrying tension. It clung to them quietly, tightly, like their matching backpacks. The first few miles were uneventful. Jacob navigated like a man who'd read the map 12 times. Holly followed in silence, camera slung around her neck. Every now and then she snapped a photo, mossy rock, bent trail sign, sun bursting through cedar. She didn't photograph Jacob. He didn't ask her to. Around noon, they passed a set of weathered markers nailed to a downed tree. Trail 4. A North, Ravine Crossing. Jacob paused. We should check the loop's cutoff point again. I don't want to overshoot tree 9. Holly adjusted her pack. It's not like the tree's going to run away. Jacob didn't laugh. He studied the map again, frowning. Tree 9. It was a landmark mentioned in the older trail notes. A carved pine where hikers often left ribbons or carved initials. But it had faded from the new maps, replaced by GPS waypoints and smartphone directions. Yet Jacob insisted on old-school navigation, something about authenticity or control. They continued north. The woods thickened. By 3 p.m., they were off the main route. Their boots kicked through underbrush. Jacob counted paces. Holly followed his lead but lagged behind now, sweat running down her back. They hadn't spoken since lunch, just the crunch of leaves, the chirp of birds, and Jacob occasionally muttering, "Almost there." Finally, he stopped at a clearing. The tree stood dead center. A tall, weathered pine, its bark darker than the rest, its limbs twisted like knuckles. Near its base, a jagged carving cut through the resin-scarred surface. Tree 9. It didn't look inviting. "Here," Jacob said, more to himself than her. Holly pulled out her camera. The sun was dropping. Light filtered through high branches in long, amber streaks. She took one photo, then another. Then a sound behind her. Crack, like a foot snapping a branch. She turned. Nothing. Just trees. She looked at Jacob, but he hadn't heard it. He was unpacking gear, laying out the tent pieces in measured order. Focused, oblivious. She didn't mention the sound. Didn't mention the second one either, the slower, quieter snap about 20 feet away. They pitched the tent near a cluster of boulders, close to the tree. Holly laid out the sleeping bags while Jacob built a ring for the camp stove. "I'm going to take a few more shots," she said. "Light's good." Jacob nodded. "Don't go far. Sunset's in an hour." She wandered west, deeper into the clearing. More rustling. This time she called out, "Hello." Nothing. She took one more photo, then turned around and froze. There was someone watching, far off, a shape between two trees, tall, still, not moving. By the time she blinked, it was gone. Night came fast in the forest. They ate in silence. Jacob jotted notes in a small leather trail journal. Holly lay on her back, flashlight dimmed, camera resting on her chest. "That tree gives me the creeps," she murmured. Jacob didn't look up. "It's just a tree." "No." She hesitated. "I think someone else is out here. I saw an animal or shadow. Woods play tricks, haul." She didn't argue, but inside something itched, a knowing. She had seen a person, or at least something standing upright. She closed her eyes that night with her fingers curled around the camera strap. Jacob snored softly beside her. A mile away, at the ranger station, no one noticed that the trail log was missing. Someone had removed it, ripped the page right out. Only the word Monday was left at the bottom, torn halfway down. July 16th, 1995. Location, Tree 9, unmarked North Ridge, Yosemite National Park. Holly woke up before dawn, cold. The tent was dark, but the air inside felt thinner, wet with breath and something else. She turned slowly and reached across the sleeping bags. Jacob was gone. "Jacob?" she whispered. No reply. She unzipped the tent and blinked at the pale blue light of early morning. The fire pit still smoldered. Their backpacks leaned against a tree. His boots were missing. So was the camera. Holly stepped into the clearing barefoot, arms folded against the chill. She saw no movement, no prints, just shadows stretching long through the trees. She checked behind the boulders. Nothing. Panic started to rise. Then she saw it. Jacob, walking back into the clearing from the east, camera in hand, face unreadable. He looked shaken. "You scared me," she said. "I couldn't sleep," he replied, handing her the camera. "I thought I saw something last night. Figured I'd check it out. Trail forks about 200 yards east. Goes somewhere that's not on the map." "Did you find anything?" Jacob hesitated. "Just trees." But his hand trembled slightly as he poured water into their metal pot. Later that morning, they packed up. Jacob's mood had shifted. His words short, his tone clipped. He was preoccupied with the route, obsessing over elevation changes that didn't match the topo map. Holly suggested they turn back. "No," he said. "We're close. I just want to check one thing." They followed the faint trail east, the direction Jacob had explored. About 20 minutes in, the woods abruptly ended in a jagged bluff. Below them, a valley overgrown with sagebrush, too dense to hike through. But it wasn't the terrain that made Holly's blood run cold. It was the scrap of bright blue nylon snagged on a branch nearby, tattered and fluttering. Jacob saw it too. "Raincoat." "Looks like it." She snapped a photo. Then they heard the shutter click again. Except this time, it wasn't Holly's camera. They both turned. No one. Jacob scanned the trees, his breath shallow. "Someone's messing with us." They started back immediately, walking faster now. But when they returned to the Tree 9 clearing, something had changed. A third boot print, smaller than Jacob's, larger than Holly's, right next to the tent. Someone had stood there while they were gone. Watching. Back at the ranger station, on that same afternoon, a seasonal employee named Avi Dale sat at her desk logging trail usage from the previous week. She frowned at the printed list from the register, now uploaded into their old IBM computer. July 15th, entry number 417, Mason Gibbons, Holly, and Jacob. Ridge Hollow Loop, 10:47 a.m. Below that, blank. Except there wasn't supposed to be a blank. She pulled the physical log from its drawer and flipped to the July 15th page. Torn. She checked the metadata upload. One other line had been manually typed in before the system auto-saved. It wasn't the couple's handwriting. Entry number 418, 7:21 a.m. No names, just a scribbled message. They said Tree 9 was safe. They lied. Avi's hand hovered over the delete key. Some campers like to screw around with trail logs, leave creepy messages. But this one felt different. It hadn't been there last night. And the timestamp, 7:21 a.m., was an hour before Holly and Jacob even signed in. So who signed it? And where were they now? That evening back at Tree 9, Jacob stayed up sharpening sticks with his penknife. Not for firewood, just sharpening. "We should leave in the morning," Holly said. "We'll hike out before breakfast." Jacob didn't argue. The fear had finally reached him. Holly lay awake long after he drifted off. She couldn't stop staring at the shadows outside the tent, and when she finally slept, she dreamed of that blue nylon, wrapping around her ankles, pulling her downward, into the dark. July 17th, 1995. Location, near Tree 9 Yosemite National Park. They started hiking back at first light. No breakfast, no conversation, just the rustle of dry leaves and the rhythmic clink of their gear. The silence between them was louder than any argument they'd ever had. Holly kept glancing behind them. The forest looked different in reverse. The trees seemed closer, the air heavier, the trail narrower. More than once, Jacob stopped to check his compass, then the map, then the terrain. None of it made sense. "This trail is wrong," he said quietly. "It wasn't this steep. Are we lost?" "Number it it's not the same route." "You mean we're lost?" He didn't answer. By midday, they stopped at a rocky incline. Holly slumped onto a boulder, digging out the camera from her pack. The battery was low. Only a few shots left. She scrolled through the photos. Jacob near tree 9. The blue nylon in the brush. A close-up of their trail mix from the day before. The strange boot print by the tent. Then something new. Her thumb froze. It was a photo she hadn't taken. It showed her and Jacob from behind, walking down the trail. Zoomed in, grainy, off-center, as if taken from a hidden position behind a tree. She flipped to the next one. Another image. Jacob, alone, urinating near the edge of the clearing. She had never taken that shot. The next, her, asleep in the tent. The photo taken from just outside the flap. The time stamps were all from the night before. She looked up at Jacob, her voice cracking. "Someone's using my camera." He took the camera from her hands and stared at the screen. Then he stood. "We're not hiking back. We're not safe out here." They set up camp before sundown, not by choice, but because the trail had disappeared. Gone, as if it had never existed. They argued. Jacob accused her of not marking the trail properly when they set out. She accused him of dismissing her warnings. Neither was truly angry, just unraveling. That night they slept in shifts, or tried to. Holly lay with her eyes half closed, the camera still clutched to her chest. She didn't want it taken again. Around 2 a.m., she heard it. A whisper. Not wind, not trees. A voice, a word, repeated faintly. Her name. Not shouted, not spoken loudly, just breathed. "Holly." She sat up. Jacob was asleep. She crawled to the tent flap and looked out. No one. Then, off in the distance, maybe 20 feet into the dark, a camera flash. A bright white strobe like lightning. Then nothing. She didn't wake Jacob. She just cried silently into her sleeping bag and waited for morning. Meanwhile, July 2024. Mariposa County Sheriff's Department, Cold Case Archive. Deputy Ravi Singh opened the digitized files from the recovered trail cam. The one from the burned-out forest. From the ridge above Tree 9. It had been half melted in the fire. Yet the card had survived. He inserted the drive into the reader and clicked through. Dozens of photos, all time-stamped from July 1995. At first, they seemed unremarkable. Deer, bears, hikers. Then he froze. One image, 2 people, backpackers, holding hands, paused beside a carved tree, Tree 9. He recognized them. Jacob and Holly. The timestamp read July 17, 1995, 9:42 a.m. But another figure appeared in the frame, barely visible in the tree line. Behind them, watching, another few frames, the couple unaware. The shadow figure creeping closer, frame by frame. And in the last photo, only the shadow remained. The hikers were gone. July 17, 1995. Nightfall location, unmarked sector, near Tree 9. The sun dipped behind the ridge, and with it, the last of their hope. They hadn't found the main trail. They hadn't seen another hiker in 2 days. And Holly hadn't stopped shaking since the flash in the woods. Now they were huddled under their rain tarp, Jacob's flashlight flickering low. The batteries were dying. "Let's just move downhill tomorrow," he muttered. "We'll follow the slope until we hit the creek. That'll take us to the fire road." Holly didn't respond. She was staring at her boots, fingers trembling slightly. Her camera sat beside her, zippered tightly in its case. She hadn't told Jacob about the whisper, about hearing her name. She didn't have to, because tonight, he heard it too. It came just past midnight. Jacob was on watch, sitting with his knife drawn, when he jolted to his feet. Holly awoke with a start. "What?" Jacob's hand was raised. Listening. The woods were dead silent. Then, faint, a human voice. "Jacob." It wasn't shouted. It was too soft to be accidental, too deliberate to be imagined. "Jacob." Jacob spun toward the trees. The voice had come from the left, then the right, then behind them. He held the flashlight up and scanned the tree line. Nothing. No footprints, no eyes in the dark, no movement. "Pack up," he said. "Now." They moved under cover of darkness. No trail, no direction, just instincts. Jacob tried to follow the slope. Holly followed Jacob, and something followed both of them. The deeper they went, the more unnatural the forest felt. The trees didn't sway. The air didn't move. Twice they passed the same broken log, despite moving east the whole time. Time fractured. By 3 a.m., they stumbled onto something impossible. A metal hatch buried in the hillside, maybe 6 feet wide, circular, military style, bolted shut, covered in moss, dirt, and leaves. "What the hell is this?" Jacob whispered. Holly shook her head. "Looks like Cold War fallout shelter." The hatch had no handle, just a narrow slit across its surface. Jacob knelt and brushed away grime with his sleeve. Then he froze. A symbol had been etched faintly into the metal. Not letters, numbers, 9. Tree 9. They didn't open it. Couldn't. There was no visible mechanism. Jacob tried prying at the edge with his knife, but the seal held. Holly backed away. Then something moved behind her. She spun, camera in hand, finger on the shutter. Flash. She caught a glimpse, just a fraction of a second, of a face, pale, watching, close. The camera dropped. She screamed. Jacob turned, pulled her back, and raised the flashlight. But the face was gone. The woods were empty again. Except the hatch had shifted. It was open by an inch. They didn't speak. Jacob stood frozen, beam fixed on the crack. Holly clutched her camera bag like a life raft. A faint draft wafted from within. Cold, chemical, wet. Jacob moved forward. "Don't," Holly whispered. But he did. He placed his hand on the hatch and pulled. It opened silently, without resistance. Stairs led down into blackness, and mounted to the inside wall, glinting in the dim light, was a trail camera. Live. Blinking red. Meanwhile, July 2024, location, Mariposa County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Lena Bauer stared at the recovered photos from the bunker. Not the trail cam photos. These were different. These were from inside. Hundreds of images, stored in a waterproof container near the rusted hatch. Dozens of people, all posed the same way. Standing against a concrete wall, back straight, hands clasped. Most of them teenagers, some clearly younger, some not alive. Her deputy entered the room, pale. "We found something under the floor in the bunker." "What is it?" "A crawl space, lined with padding, chains, one cot, one tray, one old raincoat." He held up the torn nylon strip they'd found earlier, Jacob's. "And Sheriff," he added quietly, "we found carvings on the wall. Like tallies, counted days. Thousands of them." Bauer stared at the metal hatch in the photograph. "Someone sealed them in," she said, "and someone else watched them." July 18th, 1995. Location, underground structure, uncharted sector, Sierra foothills. They stood at the edge of the hatch for a long time. Jacob gripped the flashlight like a weapon, its beam shaking slightly as it cut down into the black stairwell. The air that rose from below was cold and metallic, like wet copper and mold. Holly didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her eyes were fixed on the blinking red light of the trail camera mounted just inside the hatch, angled downward, watching them. "Someone's been using this," Jacob whispered. "No," she replied. They never stopped. The stairs descended longer than they should have. Concrete steps slick with moisture, rusted pipes along one wall, a faint hum in the air, like the sound of old machinery still running somewhere below. They reached a heavy door after 27 steps. It was ajar. Inside, darkness and silence. Jacob stepped in first. Holly followed, clutching her camera like a talisman. The room wasn't large, maybe 12 feet by 15. The walls were bare concrete. One low cot in the corner, a child's sleeping bag, a rust-stained metal tray with old plastic utensils. Mounted to the wall across from the cot, another camera, dead this time. Its lens cracked, and just above the bed, carved into the concrete with something sharp. Day 1, Day 2, Day 3, and on, until Day 647. The final tally ended abruptly, slashed across the bottom. Holly tried the light switch near the door. Nothing. They explored the bunker slowly, their breath visible in the cold air. Beyond the sleeping chamber was a narrow hallway leading to another chamber, this one larger, with stacked metal shelves. VHS tapes, hundreds, some labeled, some numbered, some with names. Holly reached for one. The label, handwritten in black marker, read, Tree 9, Session 6, Jacob G. Her hands trembled. Jacob. He didn't answer. He was staring at the opposite wall, where grainy black and white photos had been taped like trophies. Most were too decayed to recognize, but one was unmistakable. Holly, sleeping in her tent, dated 2 days prior. Then the sound came. Footsteps. Above them. Slow. Deliberate. Jacob turned off the flashlight. They froze in the pitch black, not breathing. Someone was at the top of the stairs. The hatch door creaked. Hinges squealed, and then slammed shut. They both flinched at the echo. Holly bolted toward the stairwell, nearly slipping. She climbed fast, hands skimming the damp walls. Jacob close behind her. When they reached the top, she tried the hatch, sealed. No lock, no handle, just a smooth, solid surface from the inside. Jacob shoved against it, pounded, nothing. They were trapped. Inside the bunker, the air shifted. A low hum returned, now louder. And in the camera shelf room, a monitor lit up, static flickering across the screen. Then an image, not from the past. Live feed. From the corner of the sleeping chamber, it showed Holly and Jacob, now framed perfectly in black and white, staring back at a lens they couldn't see. Meanwhile, July 2024. Location, FBI Field Office, Fresno, California. Special Agent Dana Kellerman reviewed the footage from the 2024 trail cam finds. The digitized data had been cross-referenced with facial recognition. One of the tapes showed a man, disoriented, starved, escaping the hatch sometime in 2004. He staggered into the woods. Collapsed. The body had never been recovered. But Kellerman knew the face. Mason Aldridge, a boy who vanished from Oakhurst in 1997. Age 12. No one had connected the two cases. Until now. Back in 1995. Underground. Jacob collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. "We need to find another way out." "There's no way out," Holly said softly. She held up a second tape she'd found. Its label read, Session 1. Holly. July 15th. The date they arrived. The date they first signed in. July 18th, 1995. Location, underground structure, Tree 9 sector. The tape slid into the player with a hollow click. Holly hesitated before pressing play. Her thumb hovered over the button, trembling. Jacob said nothing. He sat on the edge of the cot, hands clenched between his knees, staring at the floor like it could explain what was happening. The screen lit up, static, then a slow fade in. The footage was grainy, shot in low light, but the angle was familiar. It was the same room they were in now, same concrete, same cot, same camera angle. Only the girl on screen wasn't anyone they recognized. She looked to be about 14, pale, thin, knees drawn to her chest. Her eyes darted toward the camera every few seconds, but she never spoke. In the corner of the frame, a time stamp. July 3rd, 1993, 10:14 a.m. No sound, just silence. Then the door creaked open on the video, and a man stepped into view. Only part of his body was visible, a hand, a forearm, part of a torso in a flannel shirt. He set something on the tray next to the girl, a sandwich, a bottle of water. Then he said softly, "Good girl. We'll try again tonight." The girl didn't react. The man left. The door closed. The footage continued for another 4 minutes as the girl sat motionless, blinking occasionally. Then the screen went black. Jacob reached behind the player and yanked the tape out. "I can't," he muttered. "We need to find another exit, now." Holly placed the tape down slowly and grabbed her flashlight. "I saw a locked panel near the water pipe," she said. "Come on." They moved quickly through the narrow hallway behind the tape room. The panel was rusted but intact, bolted shut. Holly knelt and examined the screws. She turned her flashlight toward the floor and froze. There were scratches on the concrete. Faint, shallow. Words. "Stop recording, stop watching, stop digging." And beneath that, carved deeper, "No way out." Jacob leaned against the wall, shaking. "We're going to die down here." "No," Holly said. "Not if we understand what this place is, what it's for." Later, they sat back in the main chamber, breathing stale air. Their water was running low. Food, gone. The flashlight batteries, almost dead. Holly returned to the monitor wall. She picked a different tape, this one unlabeled. The screen flickered. Footage began to play. It was her, sleeping in the tent. It had been filmed 2 nights ago. The camera zoomed slightly, steadied, and from behind the camera, a voice whispered, "You're perfect, so perfect." Holly stumbled back. Jacob turned his head, saw her face, and lunged for the player. He ejected the tape, hurling it across the room. It cracked against the concrete. For a moment, they both stood in silence. Then a low thump echoed through the ceiling, followed by a voice, muffled, distant, not from a speaker, from the vents. Session 2 begins tonight. Meanwhile, July 2024. Location, FBI lab. Evidence Division Agent Kellerman watched a recovered tape from the sealed crawl space under the hatch. The subject in the video, a teenage boy, chained to the cot, blinking at a single overhead bulb. From off-camera, the same voice whispered, "Look at the camera. Show them how good you've been." Kellerman paused the video. She turned to her tech. "Can we trace the voice?" "Trying, but it's distorted. Could be pre-recorded." "Then cross-check this bunker's layout with any military or Cold War schematics within a 50-mile radius of Tree 9. And if we don't find anything?" Kellerman narrowed her eyes at the screen. "Then we keep digging." Back in 1995, underground Holly sat alone, staring at the static screen. She held a new tape, unlabeled, but on the back, scratched in faint letters, "Exit Protocol." July 19th, 1995. Location, Tree 9 bunker, viewing room. The tape whirred to life, flickering across the screen in sickly gray tones. Holly didn't breathe. Jacob didn't move. The title card came first, blocky white letters on a black screen. Exit Protocol, version 3.1, for internal use only. Then, a new scene. Not of the bunker, not of victims, but of a man. Middle-aged, balding, glasses perched low on his nose, standing in front of a chalkboard covered in diagrams. He wore a park ranger uniform, but the badge on his chest didn't read Yosemite National Park. It read North Ridge Conservation and Behavioral Studies Unit. "Welcome," the man began, tone instructional. "This orientation is intended for new custodians assigned to Tree 9 sector." This installation was established as part of Project Arden in 1983, under joint authorization from the Department of Interior and the Private Behavioral Sciences Initiative known as the Sylvan Accord. The purpose of Tree 9 Station is to study long-term psychological responses to social isolation, confinement, and submissive conditioning under high surveillance, low intervention conditions. He turned to the board and pointed at a sketched layout, nearly identical to the bunker Holly and Jacob now stood in. Test subjects are to be introduced via trail-based selection or off-grid extraction methods. External contact is strictly prohibited after Session 2 is initiated. Exit protocol is to be used only in the event of total system breach. In such cases, the hatch will be permanently sealed. Backdoor egress may be accessed via the interior drainage corridor. Holly grabbed the remote and paused the tape. Her hand was shaking. "Backdoor egress," she whispered. "There's another way out." Jacob stood. "Drainage corridor," he repeated. "We need to find that tunnel, now." They scoured the lower chamber with new urgency. Holly found it, behind a rusted shelving unit in the back storage room. A narrow duct, half concealed behind warped paneling. The vent was small, barely wide enough for one person to crawl through, but it wasn't sealed. The cover was bolted, but loose. Jacob knelt and began wrenching at the bolts with the handle of the broken flashlight. As he worked, Holly turned toward the hallway and stopped. The monitor was back on. Only this time, it showed live footage of them. Jacob at the grate, Holly frozen in the hallway. The camera was in the corner of the ceiling, and the feed was being broadcast somewhere else. Holly walked up to the screen. The feed flickered. Cut to black. Then new text appeared. "You weren't supposed to find this. Now there is no exit." Jacob yanked the final bolt free. The panel crashed to the ground. The tunnel opened into shadow. He looked at Holly. "We're going." She hesitated, then nodded. They gathered their things, what little they had, and slid into the crawl space one at a time. The tunnel was tight, cold. The concrete scraped their elbows as they crawled forward in darkness. After 20 feet, they reached a junction. Left led downward, to what smelled like standing water. Right, toward a faint trickle of air. A breeze. Fresh air. They turned right, crawled. Holly's arms were cramping. Jacob's shirt tore on a jagged seam in the pipe, but they kept going, until they reached the end. A grate. They could see moonlight through the rusted slats. Jacob pressed both hands against the metal and pushed. It didn't move. "Try again," Holly whispered, barely audible. He slammed his shoulder into it. Again and again. Something cracked, but not the grate. Jacob slumped forward. "No," Holly breathed. "Please, no." His head rolled sideways, blood leaking from his mouth, his chest still. Behind her, a whisper, so close it brushed her neck. Session 2 was never canceled. Meanwhile, July 2024. Location, Northern California. Off-grid research compound. Sheriff Bauer stood in the ruins of what used to be a remote conservation lab, long abandoned and overtaken by forest. The building had been torched years ago, possibly arson, but the partial sign remained. Faded lettering still visible. Sylvan Accord, Behavioral Field Unit. NR Sector. The deputy beside her stepped over a collapsed desk, holding a file box partially intact. "Sheriff, look at this." Inside were Polaroids, names, timestamps, children, adults, missing persons, all tagged with Tree 9. Cross-reference every name, she ordered. If even one of these matches an open case, we're pulling the FBI back in. Back in 1995. Drainage tunnel termination point. Holly's body shook. She was alone now. Jacob's lifeless form slumped beside her. The grate above her sealed, her knees jammed in the narrow pipe. But she saw something, just beyond the grate. A motion sensor light, flickering weakly. Someone had been maintaining this. There was an exit. She just hadn't earned it. Yet. July 19th, 1995. Concurrent timeline location, Yosemite National Park, Ranger Station plus Forest Ridge above Tree 9, 7:12 a.m. Ranger Tess Caldwell scribbled in the margin of the trail logbook, Mason Givens, overdue, scheduled return, Monday, July 17th. No check-in, flag for follow-up. It was standard procedure. Dozens of hikers came through every week. Some just forgot to sign out. Some didn't come back at all, at least not until the next weekend. But something about Holly's handwriting stuck in her mind. The looping sun she'd drawn, a cheerful symbol that now felt mocking. Tess stood and walked to the corkboard above the dispatch desk. A faded map was pinned there, torn and yellowed with tape. The older route, before GPS took over. She traced a line with her finger, looping north, past Ridge Hollow, Trail 4, Tree 9. The tree was still marked on this map. Barely. She pulled it down and walked toward her Jeep. 8:03 a.m. Halfway up the ridge, Tess paused and scanned the tree line. Birdsong, wind, pine needles crunching underfoot, and then something glinted in the brush just beyond a cluster of boulders. She stepped closer and crouched. A plastic lens cap, camera-sized, partially buried in the dirt. She pocketed it. Another few feet, and she found the clearing. Tree 9 stood at its center, blackened, aged, leaning slightly. A soft breeze moved through its branches. She approached and noticed something new. Fresh bark had been carved. Recently, within the last 48 hours. Below the original Roman numeral 9, someone had added a new mark. No exit. Back at the station, Tess sent a radio call to the county sheriff's office. "This is Ranger Caldwell. We've got a probable overdue hiker situation. 2 individuals, last check-in 3 days ago. I'm flagging Tree 9, requesting aerial drone sweep of the Ridge Hollow sector." Dispatch acknowledged. She didn't mention the lens cap, or the new carving. Not yet. She wanted to return on foot tomorrow. Something didn't feel right. Not just about the missing couple, but the land itself. Meanwhile, July 2024 location, FBI evidence locker. Fresno agent Dana Kellerman examined the latest recovered item from the Tree 9 bunker excavation. A blue nylon raincoat, child-sized. Inside one pocket, a crumpled note sealed in plastic wrap. The ink had partially bled, but a few words were still legible. Still alive. Session never ends. Exit is not above. He said no one escapes Tree 9. Kellerman circled the last phrase and underlined it. Tree 9 isn't a place, she said aloud. It's a system. Back in 1995, underground drainage Great Holly couldn't move Jacob's body. The tunnel was too narrow. She was wedged in, stuck between death behind her and a sealed grate in front of her. But she could scream. And she did. For hours. Her voice cracked. Her knuckles bled against the grate. She kicked, cried, whispered prayers that felt useless in a place like this. And then, a scraping sound. Metal against metal. Someone outside. A silhouette passed over the vent. She screamed louder. "Please, help me! I'm alive! I'm here!" The shape paused. The light flickered. And then, a face appeared, but not one she recognized. A girl, 15, 16, dirty, pale, shaking. Her mouth moved silently. She pressed her hand to the grate. Then she whispered, You shouldn't be down here. Holly sobbed. Please, open it. The girl's eyes filled with tears. I can't. I'm not allowed. She backed away slowly, like she just committed a betrayal, then vanished into the brush. Later that night, inside the Tree 9 bunker, a screen lit up again. Footage played. Camera feed. Holly, sobbing in the drainage tunnel. Jacob's body behind her. A mechanical voice repeated quietly in a loop. Session 2. Psychological deterioration, Phase 3, engaged. Subject 46 shows signs of collapse. Subject 47 no longer responsive. Then a different screen came on. The girl, the one from above, now sitting in a separate room, eyes red, face pale. She stared into the camera and whispered, "He knows they're here. He says we have to make a choice." July 19th, 1995. Late night location, Tree 9 bunker and adjacent chamber. Holly lay curled in the drainage tunnel, her voice gone hoarse. She couldn't tell how long it had been since the girl appeared. An hour? 2? Time was starting to slip. Jacob's body had gone cold behind her. She refused to look at it anymore. Not yet. A soft clink pulled her back, metal on metal. She turned her head. The grate. It was shifting. One bolt unscrewed from the outside, then another. Then the face returned. The girl, trembling, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I can't take you out," she whispered, "but I can let you back in. It's the only way." Holly didn't understand. The girl reached in and pulled the grate free, then motioned silently. "Follow me," quietly. The tunnel led back into the bunker. Not the same entrance. This was a secondary chamber, deeper in, somewhere Holly hadn't seen. The girl moved like a ghost. Barefoot, limbs thin, t-shirt hanging off her like a curtain. She kept glancing behind them as they crept through a hallway lit only by emergency lights. They passed doors, each numbered, each with a camera lens above it, each with a lock on the outside. Finally, they ducked into a narrow side room, a maintenance corridor lined with pipes and supply boxes. The girl shut the door and turned slowly. "My name's Mara," she whispered. "I've been here 10 years, I think." Holly's stomach turned. 10? I was taken when I was 5. They said I was chosen, that I'd help fix the world. Holly stared at her. "You're not the only one. There were others. Before me, after me. Some tried to escape. Most stopped trying." Mara knelt and reached into a vent. She pulled out a small plastic bag. Inside, a handful of photos. Water-stained, curled at the edges. Images of children. Some smiling, some crying. All of them against the same concrete wall Holly had seen on the tapes. Mara tapped one photo gently. He called her Subject 19. She was my sister. "What happened to her?" Holly asked. "She died in the drainage tunnel." Holly flinched. "She got out, but never made it far. They found her, punished me." Mara lifted her shirt slightly. Rib cage bruised, scars down her spine. "After that, I stopped trying to leave. I just listened." Somewhere deeper in the bunker, a siren gave a single, long pulse. Low, distant. Mara tensed. "That means he's watching again." "Who?" Holly whispered. Mara's eyes darkened. She leaned forward. "They call him the custodian. He was never supposed to stay down here, but he liked it. He said the surface was dying anyway, that we should make a new world below." In the upper-level command room, unseen by either of them, monitors blinked silently. Dozens of feeds, some old, some new. One showed Mara, whispering to Holly. Another showed Jacob's body in the tunnel. Another, a live feed from above ground, zoomed in on the forest floor near Tree 9. The camera panned slightly. A new boot print had appeared outside the hatch. Meanwhile, July 2024. Location, Forensics Archive, Sacramento Bureau. Agent Dana Kellerman stood over a spread of recovered ID cards, all bearing the same header: Project Arden, Experimental Isolation Research Personnel Access, Tier 3 Clearance, Tree 9. One card was highlighted in red: Custodian R. Hollis, status presumed dead, 1997, presumed, she said under her breath. But not confirmed. Her assistant entered the room, pale. "We just pulled data off the last unmarked VHS, ma'am. It's recent. Dated 2003. Kellerman frowned. "No one was supposed to be alive in there after 2000. The assistant nodded. "That's what makes it worse." Back in 1995, Maintenance Corridor Mara handed Holly a folded napkin. On it, hand-drawn in pen, was a map of the bunker. Crude, but accurate. "This door," Mara whispered, pointing to a hallway marked W, "leads to the observation gallery. If he's there, it's your only chance." "To do what?" "To end it." Mara's voice wavered. "There's a switch. He keeps it hidden. It locks the main systems, cuts the power. If you can find it, maybe the upper hatch will open. Why don't you come with me? I'm not supposed to leave my sector." "Mara?" "I don't even know what the sun looks like anymore." As Holly stood to leave, Mara pressed something into her hand. A plastic toy key, bright yellow, scuffed, meant for a toddler. "It fits one door," Mara said. "Which one?" Mara didn't answer. "Only this. Don't look behind the green door, ever. If you do, he wins." Holly stepped back into the hallway alone. Somewhere deeper in the bunker, something mechanical clicked, and the speaker system activated. A distorted voice echoed through the corridor. "Subject 47 has exited assigned zone. Session 2 escalation initiated. Custodian en route. July 19th, 1995. 2:33 a.m. Location, Tree 9 Bunker, Level C." Holly moved down the hall with the map in one hand and Mara's plastic toy key in the other, every step echoing like a drumbeat of dread. Behind her, the bunker groaned. Old ventilation shafts whispered stale air. The cameras above each door made faint clicks as they tracked her movement. Watching, always watching. She passed door R, then S, then V. Door W, the one Mara had circled, was just ahead. But there was another door just before it. Green, faded, flaking, a sickly color that didn't match the sterile gray of the other doors. There was no camera above it, no lock, just a narrow label, long since scratched off. And something else. Scrape marks on the floor, like the door had been dragged open and slammed shut over and over. Mara's warning echoed in her head. "Don't look behind the green door, ever. If you do, he wins." She paused, then made the mistake of listening. From behind the door came breathing, but not normal. Wet, rhythmic, animal-like, and layered beneath it, something worse. A whisper, repeated, almost sung, "I see you, I see you, I see you." The voice wasn't male, or female. It was wrong. Holly backed away, turned to door W. This one was locked. A keypad glowing red beside the handle. She tried the plastic toy key. To her shock, it worked, but not in the keypad. It fit into a hidden panel just below it. The lock clicked. Door W creaked open. A long corridor revealed itself, darker than the others. Unlit, silent. She stepped inside. The door closed behind her. The observation gallery was colder than the rest of the bunker. She stood before a wall of glass windows, each looking down into a different room. Concrete chambers lit by flickering fluorescent lights. Room A. A cot, chains, a coloring book on the floor. Room B. A wall smeared with bloody handprints. Room C. A mirror, one way, facing directly into the observation room. Holly saw her own reflection, pale, wild-eyed, unrecognizable. And then someone else stepped into view, behind her. She turned, fast. No one. But the door had opened again, and the custodian was waiting. He wore what was once a ranger's uniform, now frayed, stained, too small for his bloated frame. His face was unshaven, his eyes bloodshot and sunken. A thick scar ran from his ear to his collarbone. He said nothing, just tilted his head, studying her. Then, "Subject 47, you weren't meant to see this level." His voice was raspy, too calm. "Where's Jacob?" Holly asked, her voice raw. "He served his purpose. He was loyal, for a while. You filmed us." "Yes. You killed him. I studied him." She scanned the room for the switch Mara mentioned. The custodian stepped forward. "You think there's an escape," he said. "But there isn't. Tree 9 doesn't release its roots. It buries deeper. It spreads." Holly's fingers grazed the desk beside her. A control panel. Labeled in a faded strip of tape, System Core, Hatch override a single toggle, and a key slot. She raised the toy key. "Don't," he warned. "I will. You won't make it to the surface." "I don't have to." She turned the key, pulled the lever. The lights overhead dimmed, then flared red. Alarms began to wail. Elsewhere in the bunker. Drainage hall. Mara stood just inside the green door, tears streaming. Inside that room, barely lit by backup power, dozens of old costumes hung from the ceiling. Clown suits, ranger uniforms, animal masks. Each one stained. Each one worn at some point by the custodian during sessions. She backed away, closing the door slowly. The whispering voice returned. "You let her touch the switch. You ruined the cycle. Now we must root deeper." She ran. Back in the observation room, the custodian lunged. Holly dodged, slamming a chair into his side. He stumbled, but recovered fast. She dove for the door, made it into the corridor. Sprint, turn, another door. Behind her, he howled. Not in pain, but in fury, like a dog denied its prey. Alarms blared throughout the bunker now. Somewhere far away, a clunk echoed up a ventilation shaft. The hatch. It was open. Meanwhile, July 2024. Location, Tree 9 excavation site. Sheriff Lena Bauer stood over the now cleared hatch, watching as federal agents lowered themselves into the earth. One shouted back up moments later, "We've got remains, at least 2 bodies in the tunnel." "But," a pause, "there's fresh footprints, small ones, child-sized, leading out." Lena stepped back. A shape moved in the trees behind her. A girl, teenage, blonde, watching, then gone. Back in 1995. Bunker main hall. Holly reached the base of the stairwell. Light streamed in from above. The hatch was cracked open, just wide enough. She climbed. Behind her, footsteps. She pulled herself onto the forest floor and slammed the hatch closed, then rolled onto her back, sobbing under the stars. She was out. She had made it. But the forest felt wrong now. Too still, too quiet. And somewhere in the dark, beneath her, the bunker still breathed. July 20th, 1995. Dawn location, Sierra National Forest, near Ridge Hollow. Holly wandered for hours. Her legs burned. Her throat was raw. Her mind a whirlwind of images. Jacob's face, Mara's warning, the monitor feeds, the green door. She followed the ridgeline, navigating by sunlight. Every crunch of a twig behind her made her flinch. Every bird call felt rehearsed. Too clean, too placed. When she finally stumbled into a ranger's patrol zone, clothes torn, face smeared with ash and blood, they didn't believe her at first. She collapsed against a pine tree, blinking into the sun. "Where's your partner?" they asked. "Gone?" she croaked. "Where have you been?" "Underground," she said. "Buried alive." 2 days later. Mariposa County Medical Center. Holly sat alone in an observation room, wrapped in blankets, hands trembling as she spoke to Sheriff Lena Bauer. "I didn't imagine it," she insisted. There were other people down there. Kids, cameras, some kind of study. Bauer nodded slowly. Can you draw a map? Holly tried. What came out looked like madness. Rectangles, tally marks, rooms that looped into themselves. There was a girl. Her name was Mara. She helped me escape. Could she still be in there? Holly hesitated. She said she couldn't leave, that she wasn't allowed. That same night, Tree 9 sector. A team of officers returned to the ridge with Holly's hand-drawn map. They found the hatch open. The tunnel was empty. No tapes, no cameras, no body, no signs of recent human activity at all. The bunker looked abandoned. But near the entrance, carved freshly into the bark of a nearby tree, they found a single message. Session 3 begins now. July 24th, 1995. Unknown location. A new VHS cassette was delivered to a small post office box in Oakland. No return address, no postage. Just a label. Session 3, Tree 9. Inside the tape, static, then flickering footage, a room, concrete walls, chains, and Mara, older now, eyes glassy. She sat silently as a shadow moved behind the camera. Her voice was soft, robotic. This is Subject 48, ready for instruction. Meanwhile, July 2024, FBI Archive. Fresno Field Office Agent Kellerman stood over a wall of photos. Dozens of names, faces, red string connecting years of disappearances to a single locus point. The Tree 9 installation. Most of the tunnels are collapsed now, a field tech said, and whatever generator was powering those rooms is long dead. No, Kellerman muttered. It wasn't just one bunker. It was a network, a testing ground. She turned to the corkboard. In the center, a photo of the green door, still intact, still marked only by scratches. Underneath it, she wrote, "Where did Session 3 go?" Back in 1995. Holly's apartment. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every reflection looked wrong. Every dark hallway hummed. She unplugged her television, her phone, removed the batteries from her smoke detector. But it didn't stop. The static returned anyway. She heard it in her walls. And one night, 3 weeks after her rescue, she found something on her porch. A plastic envelope. Inside, a tape. No label, no return address. Just a handwritten note. Subject 47, review for approval. Session 4, pending. August 13th, 1995. Location, Holly's apartment, San Francisco, California. She didn't open the envelope right away. For hours, Holly stared at it from across the room, propped on her kitchen table, sealed with a strip of duct tape. The tape had a single word scrawled across it. Return. She knew she should turn it in. Call the sheriff. Contact the FBI. Instead, she made tea, closed the blinds, pulled every phone cord from the wall. Then, with trembling hands, she slid the tape into the VHS player. The static was immediate. Then an image, grainy, black and white. The concrete room, the same cot, the same lens angle, but it wasn't Mara. It was her, Holly, on screen, from before, sleeping in the tent near Tree 9. The date stamp in the corner read July 15th, 1995, 2:18 a.m. Then another cut. Now she was inside the bunker, lying on the cot. Same clothes, eyes open, blinking into the camera. She didn't remember this moment, but it was her. The screen crackled again. Now she was standing in front of the green door, hand reaching out to open it. Her own voice, barely above a whisper, spoke from the tape. Session 4. Will be better. She ejected the tape, launched it across the room, screamed, but the image burned behind her eyes. August 15th, 1995. Mariposa County Sheriff's Office. The envelope arrived without postage again, left on the front desk overnight. Inside, a photo. A trail sign, handmade. tacked to a tree near the Ridge Hollow trailhead. It read, "Welcome subjects, Tree 9 is open." Below it, a date, September 1st. Sheriff Bauer stared at the photo in silence, then picked up the phone. "Get Kellerman, now!" Meanwhile, underground feed room, unlisted sector. The screens glowed in rows, static, then shape. A girl stood at the center of the frame, barefoot, hair in her face. Mara, older, still alive, still recording. She lifted a hand and pointed directly into the camera. Spoke clearly now. "Subject 47 is approved for advancement. Session 4 begins soon. September 1st, 1995. Dawn Ridge Hollow Trail, Sierra National Forest." A new pair of hikers signed the logbook. Couple from Sacramento, early 30s. They wrote, "Looping north past Tree 9. Back Monday." The ranger at the station didn't see them leave, didn't notice the new trail marker posted near the tree line. A white placard. Hand-painted letters. Route. Deeper. July 2024. Location, Federal Recovery Facility, Oregon coast. Holly stood on a windswept cliff, camera bag slung across her shoulder, staring at the Pacific. She hadn't spoken publicly about Tree 9 in nearly 3 decades. She had refused interviews, declined books, avoided therapy. But the dreams hadn't stopped. Neither had the deliveries. Each year, on July 15th, another tape arrived. Each year the faces inside were different. Until this year. This year, the final tape arrived. And it didn't show children. It didn't show Mara. It showed her, in the control room, hands on the switch, voice whispering into the mic. "Let's begin again." She wasn't sure if it had already happened, or if it was about to. The note inside the envelope simply read, "There's no such thing as a final subject. There's only the next one."